At a time when black people had limited outlets for expression and advocacy, the emergence and the rise of the black press was critical when it came to activism, identity, and community.
And the Chicago Defender was one of them that stepped in to fill the void. On this episode of Black Business Icons, we're going to take a closer look at the Chicago Defender and its founder, Robert S. Abbott.
I'm Lamar Tyler with Traffic, Sales, and Profit.
And I'm Freddie Taylor, founder of Urban Intellectuals. We're coming to you from the Black Dot Cultural Center in Lithonia, Georgia. This now thriving bookstore started as a counter when the owner started a space at the front of a restaurant. Now he has added more titles, live events, and some outstanding coffee blends from around the world.
Now, Freddie, we know as entrepreneurs ourselves that big ideas oftentimes have small beginnings. And that is exactly the case with our next Black business icon, Robert S. Abbott.
Robert Sinstag Abbott was born in 1870 on St. Simon's Island, Georgia, to former slaves. His biological father died of tuberculosis before Abbott was a year old, and his mother eventually married John Sinstag. They and their 7 children settled in Woodville, Georgia, a historically black suburb of Savannah. As a young man, Abbott learned the basics of printing trade by working as a printer's assistant. And he liked it enough to enroll in the printer's trade program at Hampton University, now Hampton College. Like so many of our Black business icons, racism was ever present.
Tired of the discriminatory practices in printing, Abbott moved to Chicago. Switching careers, he went to law school and ultimately graduated from Kent College of Law in 1899. Now, being educated didn't make it easy. Abbott still faced discrimination trying to start the business and grow the business as a black attorney, but he still maintained a strong interest in writing and journalism. He started contributing articles to black-owned newspapers, discussing legal issues and other topics of interest to the black community. He honed his skills as a journalist, while he also made a name for himself within the journalism industry.
In 1905, Abbott took a significant step in his career by founding the Chicago Defender newspaper. The first paper was actually a small 4-page pamphlet. It had humble beginnings, but a mighty goal.
I'm interested in my people becoming full citizens. Because of my faith in God, I realize that for freedom, there you must pay a great price.
Okay, Lamar, let's talk a little bit about the black press. They did a lot more than just report the facts.
Definitely so. When I think about the black press, especially during those times, they gave us a voice where there was no voice. In cities like Chicago, in DC, in Baltimore, in Atlanta, in Milwaukee, literally all around the country, because without the black press, so many of the things that we needed to know, so many of the activism pieces that we need to gather around, and so many of the atrocities that were happening, we wouldn't have been aware of because we wouldn't have had anyone that actually could have told us what was going on.
Yeah, and I think about how courageous these entrepreneurs are, right? We talk about racism today, but again, you're literally talking about Willie Lynch. You're literally talking about lynchings and intimidation and the rise of KKK and all of these elements in our community. But these people are being bold enough to stand up and talk about these issues in our community and advocate for our community.
And again, to draw parallels to today we may be worried about a troll posting something that we may deem as racist in the comments on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. But imagining setting up shop and being concerned that someone may firebomb your actual way of living, or even worse than that, not even just your business, but your actual home where your family and your children go to sleep every night.
Yeah, in addition to business being tough, right, you got to have the intestinal fortitude to withstand the mental trauma, right? Just even dreaming about what could happen. And like you say, thinking about your family, your children. And man, you got to give hats off to these brothers and sisters that really stood in the fight for us.
I definitely agree. Like you said, it was a lot more than just reporting facts. Advocacy and activism was a big part of its role, reporting on issues about social justice, but even more importantly, civil rights. The black press countered negative stereotypes often reported and portrayed by mainstream media. They, of course, portrayed a more accurate and balanced representation of black life. It helped readers become more politically active by covering campaigns and endorsing candidates, which was crucial for the advancement of the civil rights agenda. And it provided a platform for celebrating and promoting African American culture by supporting Black artists, writers, and intellectuals while giving a voice to people who had been silenced for far too long. The little pamphlet we talked about that Abbott started in 1905 was a full-fledged newspaper just a few years later. Abbott's editorial approach was both bold and unapologetic as he confronted issues of racial segregation, lynching, and racial violence head-on. But then came the Great Migration.
So let's talk a little bit more about the Great Migration. In fact, my family participated in it, and I've heard my dad talk about our grandparents moving from Georgia up to the Detroit, Michigan area. He was actually born there, but again, my grandparents moved from the South during the Great Migration and came northward for opportunity.
And many of our families did. And I think, again, what we got to focus on is the fact that the Black press, them talking about these stories, the families, and the opportunity that existed up north in the Midwest is what brought a lot of families out of the South on those trains, in the cars, or any way possible to get to where they saw more opportunity, more jobs, and potentially more money and wealth for their families.
Yeah, and think about the timing of it all, right? Like you're a couple of decades out of slavery, Jim Crow's in full effect, the Black codes are in effect, the KKK is roaming around, so people are really looking to escape this persecution and this terrorism. Let's just call it what it is, right? Looking for opportunity, looking for safety, number one, right? How can you have babies and children in this type of society, this type of environment? So I understand the Great Migration, looking forward to opportunity, moving north for safety and jobs, right? You gotta feed yourself.
Definitely so. And I think it ties into the one thing that we all want still today and we can relate with is we want better for our families and our children.
Love it. Well, that was part of the Great Migration, a time between 1916 and 1970 that saw between 6 and 7 million African Americans move from the rural South with its dearth of opportunity and ever-present racial violence to the North, West, and Midwest. And the Chicago Defender had a hand in all of this. The Chicago Defender provided valuable information to African Americans in the South about job opportunities, housing, and living conditions in the North. It published articles and ads talking about the advantages of moving to northern cities. It also recruited African Americans to fill labor shortages in various industries in northern cities. The Defender also advocated for civil rights and racial equality by raising awareness about racial violence, segregation, and discrimination in the South. It helped shape public opinion by challenging racial stereotypes and prejudices.
So while Black people wanted to move north for opportunity, white people understood that this would cause a drain on labor. So in some areas, they wanted to get the Chicago Defender banned. And in some cities, they actually were successful. So how do you get a newspaper full of information about a better life and new opportunities to the people that need it the most? Enter the Pullman Porters. So the Pullman Porters were African-American men employed by the Pullman Company, which operated luxury passenger trains. They were pivotal in the distribution of Defender and other African-American newspapers during the early to mid-20th century. They would carry several copies on board with them, sometimes sell them to safe customers on board the train. And at various train stops, the Pullman Porters would provide newspapers to passengers as they disembarked, further spreading the information and the word that the newspaper provided.
Once in the communities, the Defender was read aloud in barbershops, barbecue joints, and churches where they would sometimes print a snippet of the paper in church bulletins. It wasn't easy, but the word was definitely passed. The Chicago Defender became a trusted source for news and information and had really become the paper of record for many Black Americans.
So it was only natural that the Defender, along with John H. Johnson's Ebony magazine, were the two outlets that were given unfettered access to cover one of the most horrific crimes this country has ever seen, the lynching of Emmett Till. The newspaper's reporting was instrumental in raising awareness about the crime and mobilizing public opinion for justice. Its unflinching front-page coverage and in-depth reporting confronted readers with the shocking details of the crime. While white mainstream papers avoided it, the Defender was one of the few outlets to publish the horrible open casket photos of Till's body. The extensive coverage combined with the advocacy and activism that followed is considered a pivotal moment in the history of the civil rights movement.
In an effort to portray positive images of black children, in 1921, the Defender added a children's section called the Defender Junior, with a fictional editor named Bud Billiken. Children could apply to become members of the Bud Billiken Club, and editors took turns writing Billiken's weekly column. In 1929, the Defender founded the Bud Billiken Parade, back-to-school celebration held in Chicago. The parade has been a key event celebrating African American life, culture, and education in Chicago for over 90 years, and is considered one of the largest parades in the United States, often bringing over 1 million attendees every year.
Bud Billiken, as he calls himself, is really David Kellum, editor of the Chicago Defender, and he founded Billiken Day 16 years ago.
So, Robert S. Abbott, with just a 25-cent investment, launched a 4-page, 6-column pamphlet that ended up becoming a voice of the people in the movement. At its peak in the mid-20th century during the Great Migration and the Civil Rights Movement, the Chicago Defender's circulation was estimated to be well over 200,000 copies per week. And it was one of the most widely circulated African-American newspapers in the United States during that period, in large part through Defender's efforts. Somewhere between 200,000 and 400,000 African Americans migrated to the North between 1916 and 1919.
You know, Lamar, I want to go back really quick. You were talking about how white folks were trying to ban the Chicago Defender in the South.
Yep.
This kind of backfired on them because they tried to ban it, but it actually made more and more people want the product, want the Chicago Defender there in the South. So it kind of even made it more popular.
And I'm not surprised. So many times through history, when people have tried to hold us down as a people, we found a way to succeed.
Yeah, still we rise.
Exactly, still we rise. And I want to say to you guys, we have successfully just wrapped another episode of Black Business Icons, and I can't wait to share more with you. If you have a Black Business Icon that we should feature, make sure you hit us up both on social media. I'm at Lamar Tyler.
And I'm Freddie Taylor. You can find me at Urban Intellectuals. Join us next time on Black Business Icons.
Let us live together in friendship. Let us live together in peace. Let us walk together with love.
The Combo, your home for conversations on Black entrepreneurship and wealth, available on your favorite platforms.